For those that don't know, my name's Joel. I'm the Director of Partnerships at Zero Foodprint Asia. I've been working in hospitality since I was 13, so coming up 30 years, and been really passionate about, how, climate, environment for the past sort of 10 or so years, because it wasn't really a thing when I was making my way up, but now it's a very important part of what I do. And it's something that, like I said, I'm very passionate about, and wanting to get other restaurants on board to, on this journey with us. I've also got Nick here with me. Nick will introduce himself as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nick. I've been the communication coordinator for Zero Foodprint Asia for the past year or so. It's been very meaningful work, and I hope everyone can learn something from this and join us in our fight for climate justice.
Thanks, Nick. So Nick, all our social media, everything that you see, LinkedIn helps writing our newsletter. Nick's a big part of our team. So no one steal him. So we'll get into it. So a little bit of background to Zero Foodprint. So just onto the next slide, please, Nick. So Zero Foodprint was founded back in 2015 in California. It was started by restaurant people. So Anthony and Karen had a couple of well-known restaurants called The Perennial and Mission Chinese, as well as the founder of Lucky Peach magazine. And with their restaurants, they were using it as a platform to, they were sourcing hyper local. They were sourcing, they knew the farmers from where they were sourcing from, but realized that they needed, more could be done and more needed to be done. So they decided to use their restaurant platform to help change the system. And they knew that the hospitality industry needed to do more than just simply sourcing well in order to help mitigate climate change. And this was amplified when they had their first child. Anthony's also a winner of the 2020 James Beard Humanitarian Award, and he's also sits on the board of the James Beard Foundation, where he is, bringing this topic to fruition, and getting as many restaurants to start talking about this across the United States. So, and then we have Peggy, who's also on this call. So Peggy was the chef and founder of Grassroots Pantry, which was a leading plant-based restaurant here in Hong Kong. It was, it was ahead of its time, and also, a lot of people from Asia looked to Peggy and her menu and everything that she did in order to move the movement forward. Much like Anthony and Karen in their restaurants, we sourced hyper local. We did everything that we could. We were doing all the best practices, separating food waste, recycling, you name it, we did it. No plastic inside the restaurant, 90% local and organic, but realized that this isn't enough to change the system, and that much like them, that there was more that we needed to be doing. And especially here in Asia, where we have, over 50% of the world's population, and who do consume, a fair amount of food. So a solution, needed to be here, where we could, help bring that change towards, a region like ours that really needs it. So after closing the restaurant in 2019, I should say we were the first restaurant in Asia to be part of Zero Foodprint. So in 2018, we met the founders in Melbourne, and upon returning, we joined Zero Foodprint, and we saw it as a meaningful way to be able to, make change and initiate change where it needs to happen, and that is on the farm. So our funds were getting sent to California, and helping farmers and ranchers in California to shift to regenerative practices. But then upon closing the restaurant in 2019, at the end of 2019, we then, thought about Zero Foodprint and bringing it to Asia. And then halfway through 2020, we decided, why not? Because like I said, we have so many people living in this region. We've got a ton of farmers who we feel as though can benefit from this. And it's not just environmental benefits, it's also the social benefit as well. And just want to reiterate that Zero Foodprint is the only organization that tackles environmental and climate issues led and operated by hospitality people for hospitality people. Next slide, thanks, Nick. So here at Zero Foodprint, we envisage a renewable food economy that restores our climate. And the reason for this is because industrial agriculture is heavily subsidized. That means we're giving subsidies to, that industrial form of agriculture that, uses chemicals and fertilizers and pesticides and is degrading to our soils and then to the produce that it's growing. Whereas regenerative agriculture isn't. So farmers that are doing the right thing and farming in the right way for climate, for human health, for crop health are not. So this organization flips that on its head and provides subsidies and grants to farmers in order to make that shift. So what the collective action that is Zero Foodprint is it collects a few dollars or cents depending on where you are in the world. From each restaurant transaction that adds up to make this possible. So we need to think of this as a way of farming with nature rather than against it. Next one, mate. So, we hear that term sustainability getting thrown about and bandied about a lot, but a definition that we like to use for sustainability is that it maintains the status quo, and the status quo simply isn't working. We know from, restaurants that are doing this, and especially here in Asia, this is basically where we are on the spectrum. We're at that degenerative and eco-friendly in terms of doing less bad rather than doing more good. So what this includes, these best practices, especially in our restaurant industry, is eliminating single-use plastic, putting more plant-forward options on the menu, recycling, separating food waste, upcycling food waste, these types of things. But when we look around, there's not many restaurants doing it, or even doing one or two of these. Everyone, is simply out there just sort of surviving and not really doing any of these best practices. And we know that from operating a restaurant that was doing all of these, that it doesn't make a dent in the issue. So we need to focus on where we can create and make the most impact. Next one, Nick. And that impact, where we can create the most impact, is how food is grown. So most people here would know that food does have an environmental footprint. But did you know that the global food system is a major driver of climate change, accounting for up to 37% of total human produced emissions? And of this 37%, agriculture accounts for 2/3 of that. Next one. So yeah, across all foods, the land use, land change, and farm stage of the supply chain account for up to 80% of greenhouse gas emissions, whereas transportation, waste, and packaging account for the remainder 20. If we all just take some time to just have a think about how much energy, pardon the pun, of course, is focused on transport, packaging, and food waste, right? So we have a ton of energy and a ton of focus on that. Whereas where we can create the most impact is at the farm, and we don't have as much focus or as much energy going towards that. Again, this is what we believe needs to change and what needs to happen. And in the food sector, we rely heavily on a healthy ecosystem in order for food production to thrive. Because if we don't have any food, we're not going to have any business. Next one, Nick. So 88% of consumers want to support businesses that help them make a difference. If I put it out there to everyone here, when they thought this statistic came out, most people would probably say after COVID, between 2020, 2021, this is a stat from 2016 from a Forbes magazine article. So what that means is, consumers want and need you to do more than just sustainability. They want to know that when they come to support your brand, that you are actually making a difference. And on top of that, they're willing to pay 35% more for that. So we think about Gen Z, which is probably where Nick fits in. They're going to have, that generation is now going to have a disposable income to spend, and they're going to be the ones bearing the brunt of all these actions that have happened since the Industrial Revolution or the last 50 years. So they're going to want to support a business that they know is helping them to make a difference. And whether it's for the planet or for their own health, the number of people seeking environmentally responsible products and experiences is rising, and that will only continue to rise. So when we think about, businesses marketing themselves, they're solely focused on themselves and the difference that they're making. Whereas this generation and people, and even, my generation, we want to know that we're also making that difference. It's not just solely on the business. So it's the way that we're marketing and the way that we're talking about ourselves is the way that we need to be including everybody in that solution. And bringing the environment into your brand has never been more important than it is right now. So similar to how, we've all heard about renewable energy and how it's gaining traction, and it has gained enough traction where it's now cost effective for businesses to buy renewable energy certificates to improve the grid, the electricity grid. But restaurants can also improve this grid of food by using a similar system. And chefs and restaurateurs have so much social and cultural capital right now, and they always have, that they need to use this voice and they need to be a leading force for good. So as much as food, more so how it's grown, is a part of the problem, it can also be a part of the solution. But when offering a solution, it must be accessible to everyone and not just be reliant on those doing more good or less bad, I should say. It needs to be inclusive of everybody, and it must be accessible. And every dollar generated and pledged must be directed towards actual change. We need to move beyond simply sourcing well and fund the change towards better farming, which will increase the supply of better and more nutritious food, increase soil health, and then in turn, the produce will become more resilient to extreme weather events that we're all seeing happening. So instead of a farm to table movement, we started a table to farm movement, and it's done in a way that's convenient for your business, for your staff, and all diners to participate. So next one, Nick. So as I mentioned, we're restaurant people. We know how hard it is to even get your own staff to talk about your own business, your specials, and these kinds of things. We don't want to make it any more difficult. So we've made a solution that is easy to implement, and it's simple and impactful to improve the food system and restore the climate with each purchase. And it's all about collective action. So restaurants use their platform, customers help to provide the funds. We all win. So yeah, as I said, we're not asking you to change the way you currently do business or to pay for this yourselves. We're simply asking restaurants, chefs, whoever, to use their platform for good. And the overall goal is to use every restaurant transaction as an educational tool for good. So as you can see on the slide, there's no cost to the business and only a few dollars or cents per meal, which makes sense. So how this is done is partners include a 1% opt-out surcharge or increase their selling price by 1%. So small bits from every restaurant add up to big change. Next slide, Nick. And then along with, doing that, there's also the transparency of the communication about where the funds are going, and we help with this. This is simply all it takes. So something as simple as the logo, as you can see on the bottom on your menu, a little blurb on your menu to say, hey, we support Zero Foodprint Asia. We supply a QR code where then your diners can go and have a look. It goes to our website and they can see the projects that are being funded. So rather than, like I said, having your staff talk about regenerative agriculture, which could be, might be a little bit too difficult, rather than talking about your own specials, that's not what we're about. So, and the best thing about it is 99.9% of customers want to participate as long as it's communicated to them, right? So it's just a simple communication message that's there that they can see, and 1% is all it takes. Next one, Nick. So a lot of people ask why 1%. It's not just, pulled out from the air. It's not it's actually has a little bit of science behind it. So Zero Foodprint in the US has been analyzing restaurants' carbon footprint since 2015, and findings suggest that adding a 1% surcharge would accomplish as much environmental benefit as offsetting the estimated impact from the restaurant's overall operations. So Zero Foodprint started doing analyzing carbon footprints for restaurants, and that's something that us at Zero Foodprint Asia are currently piloting with Hyatt-centric North Point. So we're looking to introduce this, life cycle assessment, carbon footprint towards the end of this year. We're just going through that pilot phase right now. And it's an interesting way for restaurants to be able to look at their own, through their own supply chain. But this 1% makes sense on a global scale as well. So according to Project Drawdown, scientists and climate experts who analysed 100 climate solutions estimates that society can solve the climate crisis by 2050 by using 1% of GDP towards the best readily available climate solutions. And this could reduce and remove 1 trillion tonnes of carbon and lower temperatures. So climate change and nature are interlinked, intertwined, whatever we want to say, and they exacerbate one another. If we continue this business as usual and grow and consume food the way we do to intensify this, we will undermine nature's ability to provide the natural ecosystem services that it provides for us. And it doesn't matter if we try to reduce in emissions, if we don't begin to regenerate and restore land and ocean sinks, we'll never be able to limit the temperatures to, the temperature rise below the 2 degrees Celsius by mid-century. And on this Project Drawdown about food and land are the top, climate opportunities. And that solution that we work on is regenerative agriculture. And as stated here by Project Drawdown, it's one of the only solutions that actually matches the gravity we face and addresses the whole and totality of the crisis. And biosequestration is the biggest and least expensive opportunity to draw down carbon and reverse global warming. So nature provides this for us. It's just that we keep effing it up. Like we're not utilizing it. We're looking at all these for this carbon capture technology, and we're looking for all of these, someone to, get a unicorn out of this and make a lot of money from, whereas nature actually gives us these solutions and they're there. It's just that we're not utilizing them properly. So land sinks currently, sequester 24% of the total greenhouse gas emissions, and 17% is currently going to the oceans, whereas 59% remains in the atmosphere. And we can continue to, increase that land sink ability to sequester carbon.
Yeah, so just now Joe mentioned some big words like carbon sequestration, also land sinks, but what exactly are they, right? Well, we are obviously not climate scientists, so we will try to explain it in the easiest and most understandable manner as we can, and to make it more interesting and enlightening. So carbon sequestration is simply a process that stores CO2 into the soil, land, ocean, in which climate scientists call these geological forms carbon sinks. These carbon sinks have the ability to store CO2 more than the amount that they absorb. So the process includes photosynthesis, which we all learned in primary school, how plants absorb carbon dioxide and then store it inside. But we were never taught the extent of it. So after they absorb the CO2, they turn into sugar, providing vital nutrients for soil to build organic matter. And around 58% of its excess exits as carbon. And it stays underground as long as there is minimal to no tillage done to the soil. For the past 6 years or so, industrial farming have removed around 50 to 70% of land's carbon stock. So these carbon dioxide are released to our atmosphere, accelerating global warming and also climate change as we're experiencing today. Hence, this is why regenerative agriculture is necessary to rebuild organic matter and also restore these carbon sinks. So we have talked about regenerative agriculture so much, and what exactly are they, right? So it is a method, food production method, to work with nature instead of against. Some of the practices include minimum to no tillage, not using synthetic fertilizers, not using pesticides, fungicides, and herbicides. And it will help improve soil health and also reintroduce biodiversity. But regenerative agriculture is so much more than just about the climate. While rebuilding soil health and structure, it makes crops more resilient, especially to these disasters we are having and also harsh weather. And thus, it will provide a stable supply to local communities and also society, and thus strengthening our food security. Moreover, these healthy soil allows to grow more nutritious food. So as we consume these more nutritious food, and they will help improve our human health, specifically gut health. In addition, like these regenerative agriculture is so much more because it also promotes equity and also to promote farmers' livelihoods. It is a way of paying respects and also giving them the recognition that they deserve. Regenerative agriculture is a holistic way of food production, as it not only tackles the environmental sides, but also the social issues in our food industry. So for the past 2 years since we have established, we have gained a lot of support. And right now we have actually more than around 25 restaurant partners, more than 70 sponsors and donors, helped raise more than 2.8 million Hong Kong dollars with our 1% pledge. And from this 1% pledge, we established this Restore Fund that helped more than 11 projects, helped turn 262 acres of farmland into regenerative practices, and also impacted more than 250 farmers. Obviously, these numbers can pop up more if we are able to gain more support, especially from you guys, and we will able to help more farmers and also to reverse some of these climate change issues. So to give you a sense of what our Restore project is about, we help to fund 5 farms in Hong Kong, 3 in the Greater Bay Area, and also 1 in Bali. So in the ones in Hong Kong, for example, Hong Farm and also Cham Cham Farm, through adopting regenerative practices such as intercropping and mulch, nutrient amendments, farmers have found that the soil health improved drastically, and also it reduces pest issues. So farmers do not have to spend too much time on pests, but they have more manpower and time to spend on other farm tasks, which in turn make them more productive and efficient. For Eva's farm, as you can see, she has been growing Japanese strawberries. So through using homemade compost and mulch, she was able to extend strawberry season until late March instead of February. So this extent doesn't seem like much, but what it does is that it increases local supply, but at the same time, reduce the pressure from imports. And this such a positive externality also reduces emissions from import transportation. And another project in Bali, we collaborated with We Nature and also Eastern Caraway, which is a agriculture community. We helped them establish a complex rice cultivation system and also other regenerative practices. And farmers have been integrating livestock and fish in their farms, which helped with weed and pest problems. So they no longer need to use herbicides and also pesticides. As you can see, regenerative practices are implemented based on the region's climate, the environment, and also the farm's operational style. It is not a set of rules or guidelines that we ask farmers to strictly follow. And this is how we set us apart from organic farming. We are more flexible and adaptive to the local's context, and while still following some of the regenerative principles. This allows us to maximize the effects of soil health improvement and also the carbon sequestration capacity. So combined, all of these Restore projects have the potential to sequester approximately 4,284 tons of CO2 over the next 4 to 7 years. So this is equivalent to 1.7 million liters of gas not used. And obviously, these numbers can pump up so much more if we are able to scale up regenerative agriculture across Asia. So from that, we will need your help and everyone's support. Back to you, Joe.
Thanks. That sounds like a news cross. Do you want to jump to the next slide? So from the earlier slide, where we need to be and where we are and where we need to be is quite far apart. So you can see, instead of just extracting from nature or sustaining the status quo, we need to move to a circular regenerative economy where produce stays in the cycle for as long as possible, and we need to restore and replenish nature. So what we're taking away, we need to restore and replenish that. And we need to fund farmers' shift to better practices rather than simply having that transactional relationship with them, because that again just keeps them in that status quo. So we need to be funding that shift in order to help farmers shift to these better practices. Next one, mate. So the member benefits, as I mentioned before, attracting conscious consumers. This will be more so evident in the coming years as Gen Z and others move in and become more environmentally aware and conscious. Costs $0 to you as an operator, just using the platform to raise awareness and to raise the funds. Next level environmental action, and your guests are contributing, and all the while creating better food and allowing more farmers to make this transition, which will then strengthen our food supply chains across the region. Next one, Nick. So joining Zero Foodprint, you're transforming eating into a climate solution. But this is not just a short-term thing. This is a long-term collaborative effort, and we can't do this without people participating and hopefully everyone participating. We would love local, regional government intervention on this, but we're kind of not quite there now, especially here in Hong Kong and across the region. Whereas in the US, where, you know, even though Anthony and the Zero Foodprint headquarters team have been working on this for, you know, since 2015, it's sort of, you know, a decade or so into that process. And in the US, regenerative agriculture is now part of the Farm Bill, and it's gaining, you know, massive traction across the whole of the United States. Whereas here in Asia, we're at the infancy, and there's nothing better than building a movement from the ground up, literally, you know, with all the produce and the soil and everything like that. So, you know, we really want to encourage people to be part of this movement and to create this big change here in Asia. Next one, Nick. So, you know, apart from the 1% pledge, which is the way that, you know, that's a monthly contribution, it's the way that we see to create a fair bit of impact, where you're able to communicate that message within your restaurant over the period and, you know, and longer. There's also, you can collaborate on a time-bound campaign. So that might mean, you know, we had Potato Head here in Hong Kong. They trialed it for 3 months, realized that it didn't have any impact on their business, or they didn't really need to do too much. And then they joined as a full partner. Unfortunately, they gave up their lease, but you can collaborate on a 3 or 6 month time-bound campaign, dedicate a specific product or products or menu item to contribute towards Zero Foodprint. It doesn't have to be 1%. It could be a certain a higher percentage, or it could be a specific dollar amount. So $1, you know, if you're in Singapore, $5 if you're in Hong Kong, you know, however it works and however suits you, to specific to where you are. Or you can do something unique that fits your brand. Roganic here in Hong Kong did some 8 hands lunches and dinners, where after costs, all the proceeds went to Zero Foodprint Asia. It doesn't have to be that. It can be any event, anything that fits within your brand and your brand's scope. Next one, mate. So yeah, that's the end of our presentation. Give us a follow on our social media, scan the QR code to find out more, sign up to our newsletter, or simply just reach out after this call, or once it's up on YouTube and you've watched it, give us a call, reach out to us. And yeah, we can, you know, hopefully start a movement in each region across Asia. So thank you. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and have an ask, as Peggy's put in the chat.
So, okay, I think some of you are not from Hong Kong, and some of the organizations we see here are from other places in Southeast Asia. I think some of the questions that might pop up would be, then how can I join? Let's say you are a restaurateur in Vietnam or in Singapore? Can I join now? Maybe Joel, you can address this.
Yeah, sure. So in the short term, so in the next three or so months, we will be launching in Singapore and Indonesia, more specifically Bali. So we've had some interest from there, and we've both, Peggy and I, visited Singapore and Bali recently. So they're the two that are in the immediate vicinity. But in saying that, we're open to speaking to others across different countries, whether it be Thailand, Vietnam, wherever, Philippines, wherever you may be, and we can try to work out a way where you can maybe start contributing straight away. But in terms of actually setting up an entity in those specific countries, we will also need to investigate what that entails as well. So, sorry, I got distracted by the question in there. If someone else can have a look at it, Nick or Peggy. But yeah, so we will be looking to get to each region, and obviously the interest needs to be there. And then obviously, offline chats, we can have individual one-on-one calls where we can discuss this, and then look to then move into that region.
All right.
So Audrey, there's no presence in the UK right now, but there is Zero Foodprint Nordic, so the Nordic region, so Norway, Finland, I think, and Sweden, Denmark, and then there is a Deutscharm as well, which is the German speaking. So there isn't one in the UK now. I suppose you might be able to, we could tap you to Anthony and Karen. It could be if that's something you want to look into. That might be something to investigate as well.
Yep. So see.
Thanks, Jerry.
Jerry. Yeah.
We'll be in touch again. Yeah. Go back to Singapore just for this. That'll be great. Do that. But yeah, I mean, in saying that, the UK is a little bit more advanced than where we are in terms of this, and I think you might get a little bit of buy-in a little bit quicker. But I think building something from the ground up and starting with some of the people that have shown interest in Singapore will be really exciting for us, especially. So if you do go back, do reach out and let us know. And yeah, if you've got contacts there in the restaurant industry, on the hospitality industry, let us know. We can reach out and, speak with them. So are you asking in terms of, can this be composted, or can this then be sent, like passed on as like food bank style food? Yeah, we could try to tap you to some people that we do know in Singapore, but yeah, this, like, just trying to think. Yeah, it's a hard one as well because of regulations. I think trying to figure that out. But yeah, I mean, we can try to tap you to some people in Bali and in Indonesia who might know the answer, but that's okay. But yeah, this isn't what sort of Zero Foodprint Asia does, but we can hopefully try to tap you to some people that can help you with this. So yeah, if there's no more questions or comments, you can reach out to us if you do have them. I believe you all received an email from Nick, or via Instagram, you can reach out to us if you have any more questions, for those that did attend. And for those that are watching this at a later date, get in touch with us via any of those means on the last slide, the slide that's currently up. Yeah, and reach out. We'd love to chat, and we'd love to chat more on scaling this across the region. So thank you very much to everyone for joining. and hopefully, yeah, we get in touch and speak further on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.